Okay, let's get started here. I'm gonna turn the music down just a little bit. If I've turned it down too much, let me know. Let's go just a bit more. There we go. Okay, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Today we're gonna continue looking at reworking the Zelda-like tutorial from the beginning, with the idea being that I'm gonna remake this specifically for Udemy. So let's start by talking about where we left off last time. So last time we made our player. We have our hitbox, which we're going to add some health to today. We have our movement object, which has the player movement script. We have our animation controller, our weapon, which currently is only a sword, but this way we can switch it out to be other weapons. And we have a state machine. So if we hit play here, you'll see that we can walk around just like we can in the current Zelda tutorial. Idle states and movement states are based on movement. And if we attack, even if we're going in like a corner direction, nothing weird happens with the sword. And I kind of like the way that, pardon me, I kind of like the way that animation looks, how it kind of pops out and then slides back a little bit first. This could be better because right now it's showing up on top of the player, but it's not a big deal. Alright, so let's start with a health system here. If you guys have questions as we're going through this, feel free to ask. Yeah. So as part of our hitbox, let's make a new script. So we're going to make a generic health system. Or let's just call this health. We could even just call this like value and then have health inherit that. No, I'm going to call it health to keep it separate for when we're attacking. And let's open this up in Visual Studio, which I don't have open, so you guys get to see the full loading of that this morning. Welcome everybody who's here. Thanks so much for joining me. Okay, cool, I do have the mic on. I had this weird freak out there that I didn't have the mic on. So we're going to create a couple values here. Let's do a max health and a current health. Let's actually do this as an integer instead of a float. And then we'll do current health as well. Now in the start method, we're going to set current health equal to max health, but I'm going to put it to do here. Change this to a reference to a SO to carry value between scenes. So we'll do current health equals max health. That's my plan, Tim, is I want this to more better. I want this to more completely follow solid design principles. I kind of broke a whole bunch of them when I was making the current version, which is why we're in a refactoring nightmare right now. So I'd like to have this follow from the beginning all of the lessons I've learned that I'm slowly implementing in the YouTube series. So for an example of how we're doing solid, each object here is supposed to have a single use. So the actual player object holds the Unity components. So it holds the sprite renderer, the rigid body, the physics collider, and the animator. The hitbox holds the trigger collider, and then that's going to hold the health object as well. The movement, this dictates how the player is going to move. Animation controller controls the animation. That's an animation controller script. Same thing with the weapon, and then each weapon will be its own object, and then the state machine will be a separate object that other things can refer to. Hey there, GD Quest, how are you? So we're kind of looking at making sure that everything is kind of in a more of a solid design sensibility. So if we go back here to the script that we were making, we don't need an update method, and we don't need collections or generic. So let's, hey there, Aniki, how are you? Hello, Arno Brower. So let's take a look at what methods we're going to need for our health system. So we're going to need to have, let's make these public. Let's do a damage, which takes a damage value. Let's do a heal, which takes a heal amount value. Let's do a, now I could consolidate this and just do like, this was pointed out, I think when I was doing the Godot RPG stream last week, but somebody pointed out that I could just do a public void change. Built-in Unity methods. And then have this be like int amount change. And then in here, I could just use this to do the change. Thanks, GD Quest. It's really cool to see you. Have a great day. Felipe, hello from Brazil. Hello from Montana in the United States. Aniki says I should invest in learning some of these design principles a bit better. There's a lot to use, and there's no one design principle to rule them all. It's always going to be a mixture of different design principles. Aniki, I think he's back in France now. And Prashant, hello from India. Hello from Montana in the United States. How are you? Okay. So it was pointed out that we could do like a change and then just have all the logic be in here, but I think it's easier for readability, and I don't think it actually adds too much to the overall processing to just have these be separate. So we could do damage and heal, and then I'm going to have a separate method for like a full damage and a separate method for a full heal. So let's do public void full damage, and this won't take any arguments. And then we'll do a full heal down here. And this doesn't take any arguments either. So, come on now, there we go. My pinkies didn't want to reach the right key. So for full damage, we're just going to set the current health equal to 0. And for full heal, we're just going to set the current health equal to max health. Could you name a few principles besides solid? Pardon me. So Tim, one of the main ones that's used with Unity development that I've noticed, and this gets used with Godot as well, is the singleton pattern. There's also, so the singleton pattern is the idea that you would have one object that exists throughout everything, and it's going to be the only ever instance of that object. So you can make rigid connections between your scripts and that object because you know for sure that it's always going to be there. Typically, I've seen Unity developers make a universal object of player so that the player exists from scene to scene, so that the player will always be rigidly connected to some other systems. I don't like doing that because sometimes you're going to want to have versions of the player in different scenes, but that singleton pattern is something that you're going to see. Let's see, there's factory, which is the idea that you're making objects that are similar to each other but with small changes. I have a book on design principles and patterns here somewhere. I should break it out. Let's see here really quickly. I was looking up at Agatha Christie plot details. Let's do C# design patterns. Okay. So gang of 4 patterns. So here we go. Let's see, the ones that get used often in Unity are the state pattern. I haven't seen anybody really use strategy very well, or really need to. Command gets used a lot. Flyweight is kind of the way that Unity does its component ideas. Singleton and factory. So those are them, and then let's do C#. Design principles other than solid. So solid is the main one, of course. Single use, open closed, the Liskov principle, interface segregation, and dependency inversion. Let's see. Let's do other than solid. I think I have to do not in all caps. I know there are some out there, but I just generally with object-oriented programming, I try to follow solid. Josh Wolf, Gang of 4. Yep. I have a book here somewhere, like I said, that's just design principles that you can use. But the thing is, there's no one strategy to rule them all. Different situations and different engines and different languages require some flexibility of thought in what principles you're going to use. So when we're doing damage, we're going to do current health minus equals damage if current health is less. Oop. I'm using C# today, not Python. So if current health is less than or equal to, or let's just do less than 0, then current health equals 0. And then we could have like some death things that go in there. And then with our heal, current health plus equals heal amount. I'll check chat in just a second here. Current health is greater than max health, then current health is equal to max health. Alright. Joshua Wolf, yeah, the Gang of 4 book, that I think when I even did the search, that's what came up specifically. There's, I want to say that there's a book specifically by Jesse Schell. I want to say it's Jesse Schell. Of Schell Games, Art of Game Design. This is definitely a great book to read. In the Art of Game Design, a Book of Lenses by Jesse Schell. Schell Games in general does a lot of really cool stuff, and he's a good person to listen to sometimes. Jesse Schell has a lot to say about gamification and education, which I think is really neat. Hello, Philippe. Jeremy, you're right, just in case it does hit 0. So less than or equal to 0. Alright, so there's our quick little health object. I'm going to go back to Unity. I'm going to put that health script on our player. And right now, because we're only using one scene, pardon me, I'm going to manually set the current health, or the max health, to be 6. And then that way the current health will automatically change to that. Now to test that this is working, I'm going to create a quick little damage object here. So in my art, I'm going to create a new 2D sprite. Let's do just a little circle. And I'm going to pull this in, and I'm going to call this damage object, or damage test. And then on my damage test, I'm going to have a damage script. So in my generic, I'm going to create C# script that I'm going to call. Let's do damage. And then I can make a damage on contact that's a child of that, or that inherits from that. So let's do C# script damage on. This way we can have damage and then damage on contact and damage over time. Gaming is Best asks, how did I learn C#? So I teach at a rural school in Montana. The school that I teach at had no programming curriculum to speak of. I'm a math teacher, and in Montana you can be a programming teacher if you have a math background. So I offered to teach a really introductory programming class. And yeah, that's how I did it. Does this in the movement rework on the Zelda-like as well? Yeah, I'm calling it ARPG, but somebody in the comments had specifically told me that technically this isn't an RPG, which I would disagree with, because RPG just means that you're playing a role and there's progression. But yeah, this is meant to be a rework of the Zelda-like. Okay, so we're gonna do a void damage, and then we're gonna need to know what we're damaging. So we're gonna pass in a health component, and we'll call this other health. And we're gonna need to know an amount of damage. So we'll use an integer value, damage amount, and then we'll do other health dot damage. This way we can have this one thing. Oh, this can't be damage. This can be, we'll call it damage other. But anyway, gaming is best. So I got from the library a great big book on Java programming, and I downloaded BlueJ and a gaming programming environment called Greenfoot, and I taught myself how to use them. And yeah, it's amazing how much you learn from teaching other people. So I didn't understand it anywhere near as well as I did after I tried to explain it to somebody else. That act of explaining it to somebody else I found to be very, very useful in learning stuff on my own. For example, I took calculus in high school and college. I didn't really understood it. I mean, I got A's in the class, but I didn't really understand calculus until I had to explain it to somebody else. And then it clicked and I knew it better. And I understand it way more because I taught it. So that's the thing. Okay, so damage on contact is going to need a on trigger enter. This should be 2D. I'm just going to retype it. And then we'll change this from collision to other. And then let's make this only work on things of a specific tag and have a set damage. So let's do a serialized field, private string. We'll call this other. We'll just call it other string, and then serialized field, private int damage. And then we'll check to see if the other thing is the other. I did something similar to this in the Zelda like it just in yesterday's video. So we'll say if other.gameObject.compare tag other string. So if it's the thing we want to do damage to, then yep, I made that public. Then we want to get its health object. So if let's actually do health other health is equal to other.gameObject.get component health, and then if other health exists, then we're going to I need to make this inherit from damage first. Then we're going to damage other. We're going to pass in other health and damage. Okay, so the Kosefent, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, says hello there. Gaming is Best says, will your game include power-ups in the future? What kind of power-ups are you talking about? I'm doing pretty well. How are you, Kosefent? What about just checking the health component is not null on the other? You're still going to need to pass it in though. So by creating a temporary object, because I mean I could do if other.gameObject component health, but then I still have to pass in that other health object. Jeremy Jackson, yep. Gotta make sure you're only damaging what you're intending to damage. So then damage other, let's save this, save all. Let's go back in Unity here, and my damage test is going to get my damage on contact script. Let's do 1 point of damage. Other string is going to be player with a capital P. And then let's make sure everything in the player is tagged as player. So we want the hitbox especially to be tagged as player. I guess it doesn't tag all the children by default anymore. That's interesting. I'll leave the weapon untagged for the moment. All right, so let's save this. Okay, hold on a second. A few things in the chat. Isn't it better, Philippe says, isn't it better to add all this on trigger enter code to the base damage? No, because I might want to have a damage over time. And if I want to have a damage over time, I can make a separate script for that. So create C# script, damage over time. And then damage over time could have, so like the way that this would be laid out is this is going to inherit from damage as well. And I could have, let's create a private int, and we'll call this like number of ticks for how many times it should tick, and then private int damage per tick, and then private int tick delay. And then I could have my update decrease the tick delay, and if the tick delay is less than or equal to 0, then I could call damage so long as I've done it a certain number of ticks, if that makes any sense. So gaming is best. I don't know if I'm going to do that in this specific tutorial, because those sound like things that would be kind of better for their own thing, but it's a good thought. Just me, Joffrey. Feel free to ask any questions you have. What specifically are you not understanding? And then Joshua Ennis says, so then just put the enemy on a layer that only interacts with the player. Yeah, I can do that. So rather than having there be just the string, I could make it so that the enemy is on a different layer than the player, or on a layer that only interacts with the player, so that it's not like damaging other enemies. I don't know. I think it's better to do it this way, but you're right. That is a structure that I could use, Joshua. Okay, so I'm going to save this script. I'll come back to this later. This is unfinished. So back in here, I just want to test out my player's health system here. I'm 90% sure it's going to work, but things always seem to go wrong with me sometimes. So let me lock the player. So when I grab the damage test here, okay, cool. That did not work. Oh, because I didn't give it yeah, I gave it a box collider. Oh, I'm locked. I didn't give the damage test a collider. Haha, that's why. So we're gonna add a component. We're gonna add a circle collider 2D. That's a trigger. And now we're going to lock ourselves on the player hitbox. I can grab the damage test and cool. So there we go. So I'm gonna turn off the damage test for now. We've got the health working. Let's I'm going to do something similar for the mana. This is another generic component because you might want to have enemies that have mana. So we're just going to call this magic. I don't know, magic doesn't seem super descriptive. Let's call it magic pool, which makes it sound like something you'd encounter in a Dungeons and Dragons game. Oh, just me, Joffrey. So what I'm doing is, so I've learned a lot in the year and 80-some videos since I started making the Zelda-like. So I wanted to go back and look at how I would rework it from the beginning, knowing what I know now. The current Zelda-like tutorial is going to get all of these improvements eventually. It's just that right now we're in this refactoring nightmare that's going to take forever to get out. But I wanted to go back and look to see if I saw a fresh project, how I would redo that. So the last stream I did, I started by reworking the movement and the general overview of the player so that it was more of like a, so that it followed solid design principles better. And today I'm looking at health, mana, and maybe the beginnings of some abilities. So, all right, so magic pool. All right, this is going to be very, very similar to what we just did with the health. So similar that I thought about having them inherit from a similar thing, but I think it's better to keep it separate, at least for people who are maybe new. So let's do a serialized field, private int, current magic, serialized field, private int, max magic, and then in start we'll set current magic equal to max magic, and then we'll make those different methods here. So let's make this public void. If I could spell decrease, that would be good. Decrease magic int amount, and let's do public void drain all magic. This doesn't need an argument. And let's do public void increase magic amount, and then public void refill magic. Okay, let me look at chat here really quickly. So you make an animation for the player when he dies. Does it become inactive, or does the control become locked? So I haven't currently made an animation for the player when he dies. At the moment, the only thing that's happening when the player is dying is that counter is just reaching 0, and it will never go into the negatives. That's something to add soon. Pue, I don't know how to pronounce that. O2 says, I don't want to be annoying, but when do you think you'll release the Godot RPG series? When I finish refactoring and finish up the Match 3 series. So probably 2 weeks, 3. Alice says hello. Alice asks, do you have your own Discord server? I do indeed have my own Discord server. Let me get a link to that. You can see I've got Discord down here. Here's my Discord server. Let's get on. No, all those people are on there. I want that instant like. So invite people. Or send a server link. Generate new link. Okay, somebody who knows Discord better than I do can maybe find the best way to do that. Okay, thanks, I have time, I can wait. Okay, good to know. All right, so back to magic pool, and then I'll get that Discord server link in a minute. Decrease magic, we're gonna do current magic. Current magic minus equals amount if current magic, again, I forgot I'm using C#. The center equal to 0. Current magic is equal to 0. Drain all magic. Current magic equals 0. increase magic, current magic plus equals amount. If again, current magic greater than, let's just do greater than. Max magic, current magic is equal to max magic. And then refill all magic is going to be equal to max magic. Okay, so Michael Benny says, I want to make my weapons into prefab so I can instance and destroy them, but can each weapon inherit from a common weapon class interface from outside of the prefab? Yes. Okay, so hold on. Okay, hold on. Let me answer Michael's question first, and then we'll talk about what we can do as far as the Discord link. So back in here, so if we look at the weapon, you might want to have, nope. Come on now, let's get out of here. All right, so if we look at the weapon, I'm gonna make this active again. We've got the sword. So all that this is really going to be made up out of is a sprite renderer, a collider of some sort, maybe not a box collider, and a damage on contact script so that we can damage the enemies. And an amount that we're going to damage them, so like say 1. So if I make a prefab folder here, so, nope, not in animations, in my assets. So we're going to create a folder, prefabs, let's drag in the sword. Now I can duplicate this, and this can be the, I don't know, I think it's a halberd. And if I open this up in its own scene, I can now change this version. So if I go find my weapons, or camera katana, oh, I called it a lance. I think it's supposed to be a halberd. Let's make sure that this has 16, no filter, 32, no compression. And now from here, you could edit where your box collider is. So like the box collider for this would need to be probably pretty big. That's the advantage of using a halberd. Now, this still has damage. Let's give it 5 points of damage or something like that. I can go back here, and under my weapons, I'm going to pull back my prefab of the halberd as a child there. Let's turn off the sword. And now, if I did my animation correctly, it should be the halberd that comes out. And you can add something extra to this. So by doing my animation the way that I did, I'm animating the weapon. You could create a component on this that would be like a weapon controller, and that weapon controller could choose which of these weapons are active based on certain situations. If that makes any sense. I hope I'm answering your question. Okay, Andrew Loft says, hello Mr. Taft, I followed your match 3 back when they started. Surprised to see you live streaming. Thank you so much for teaching us. No worries, dude. Thank you for following that, the match 3. Holy cow, that match 3 series. I know it's what brought people to me, but man, that feels like people looking at my naked baby photos right now. Alright, so back to Discord. Invite people. Copy the link. Out of here. YouTube. Live streaming. We'll put it in the actual like description for the video. So we'll do Discord link. There we go. So we got a Discord link now. Okay. So back to where we are. Okay, so now my damage test, I could test to see that this is going to take damage by making sure that the halberd isn't on the player level, or player tag, which it's not. And then the damage test can get a generic component of health. So generic components, health. Come on. Come on now. There we go. Let's say that this has a health of 10. Then let's give this an enemy tag. So we'll add a new tag, enemy, and then we'll make that tag the damage tests tag. Now if we focus on that damage test object, there we go. So now not only do we have a health system for the player, but also a health system for enemies. So the two of them are going to each other. Emo anime lover. Can I know the schedule? I have a link posted to my schedule somewhere, but let me just grab it right now. So my streaming schedule settings, streaming, get shareable link, copy, edit the video description, streaming / video schedule. Bam. All right, there we go. I hope that's what you're looking for, emo anime lover. Alice says thank you. All right, so we got our little damage test. We've got our, let's see, let's make a create empty object, and I'm gonna call this the player magic, and this is gonna get the magic pool script, which clearly I haven't saved yet. So let's save that. Back into Unity here. Let's put our max magic at 10. Now, the magic, I was planning on having that be used by abilities. So it would be a good idea to either go one of two ways. One, we can talk about UI for the health and the magic. Two, we can start talking about abilities. Anybody have any input on that? Would you rather talk about UI for the health and the magic, or would you rather talk about abilities? Let me actually look to see what art assets this comes with as far as the HUD. So we've got the hearts, dialog bubble. It can be turned into a magic bar pretty easily. There's an arrow. Jacob says UI. Sure I can, and there's yes or no buttons. What's in the effects here? Okay, cool. So we got some kind of swooshy effects. Or some explosion effects, maybe? I kind of like that sword slash. That sword slash is pretty cool too. These are neat. Hello, Cyberpunk Computing. I'm doing pretty good. All right, let's just do the health UI then. So let's create a new UI canvas, and we're going to call this the player UI canvas. So double click on that, and we'll zoom way the heck out, and let's make the player's hearts go up here. So we're going to do. Let's do UI, let's make a panel, and we're going to call this the heart holder. And I talked a little bit about this in one of my Zelda refactoring videos, but one of the things people have a tendency to ask a lot about is how to make a resizable UI, or a UI that can work on multiple resolutions. In order to do that, in my opinion, the best way to go about it is focus on the anchors and then making your rect transforms be 0 in relation to those anchors. So in this case, I'm going to have my min on x be, let's say, 5% of the screen, so 0.05. I'm going to make my max on x be, let's say, 25% of the screen, so 0.25. That's not too much. Let's go 35%. Our min on y, and this counts this as 0. So let's do our min on y as somewhere up here. Let's say 0.80. And then our max on y is 0.95. Now, to have this panel fit those anchors exactly, there's two ways you can go about it. One, you can change to the rect transform tool, and then you'll see it'll automatically snap. The other thing you can do is change these to all be 0, and it will line up nicely like that. I'm going to make this almost entirely transparent, and this is, let's add a component to this. Let's add a horizontal layout group, and then let's add some children. Let's do UI image. I want this image to be 48 by 48, and let's make this a heart. So let's go to our art, HUD, art, 16 pixels per unit, no filter, no compression, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 64, apply, multiple, sprite editor, apply. What the heck? What's up with that? What you doing there? It's pretty clean there. Told you point, no filter. This is a sprite. What did I do wrong? That's super weird. I wonder if this is like a weird Unity thing. What if I change it to default? And then let's change it back to 2D, tight, extrude edges, pivot center, generate physics. What if I allow the max size to be 2048 like it usually likes? Oh, I put the size too small. That's what I did. Okay. Alright, so let's make sure that this is multiple. I have never done that. I've never put the sprite size too small. Oh, because it's 80 wide. I thought it was 60. I thought it was 64 wide. That's why. So let's go to the sprite editor. Let's slice this by, nope, not cell size, cell count. 5 columns, 1 row, slice, apply. Now let's make this image heart 0. Let's up the size maybe a little bit right now. Well, how many of these can I fit on here? Yeah, 6 is a bit much. Let's leave it at 6 for a second. I want to play around with the layout group a little bit. So we want to do middle center. Padding is, let's leave no padding. Let's look at the game here. It's still a bit big, so let's make this, no, it's probably fine. That's probably fine. So This is going to be part 0, part 1, part 2. Cyberpunk Gaming, if I didn't already answer your question, I'm okay. I hope you're doing okay too. Nope, this should be part 4. And then this is part 5. Alright, cool. So, we want each of these to know what thing it should be displaying, which of the different source images, and what else do we want to do? Yeah, so let's go to our source here. Let's make a new folder. We'll call this UI, and in here we'll make a new script. We'll call this our UI, and then in here we will control which of the heart sprites it's going to display. I'm having trouble with words this morning. Did I open that? Apparently not. Thought I did. Alright, cool. So this is going to need to have Unity engine.ui. And we might need collections, so let's leave it there for now. Let's make some references. Serialize fields. Private sprite. Full sprite. Private sprite. Full sprite. Private sprite. Empty sprite. Alright, cool. Now, we don't need a start, but we are going to need like a setup method or something here. So let's call, I think I called it init in the main series. Okay, Michael says, when you have the time, could you try calling instance and destroy the weapon in the attack coroutine? By calling instance, do you mean creating it as part of that instance? Because I think if you're having a bug, what might be happening is Unity might be trying to process the instancing and the on2D overlap in the same frame. So you might need to have like a frame delay in there. But sure, I can look at that. Okay, where was I? Let's do public void, call this setup, and then this needs to tell it, let's not use a string, let's use a int heart type. And then this is going to tell it whether it should be full, half empty, or empty. Or let's do not even there. So switch on heart type. Let's do, oh, no. I forgot the thingy things. So let's do case 0. This should know the image as well. Private image, my image. So case 0, my image dot sprite is equal to full sprite. Break. Case 1, my image dot sprite is equal to half full sprite. Break. Case 2, myImage.sprite is equal to empty sprite break. Case 3, myImage.sprite is equal to null break. And then default break. Okay, cool. So this is what's gonna go. Yeah, I don't need generic or collections. Save that really quickly. Each of the hearts are gonna get this heart UI script. And then it needs to know the different sprites. HUD, full, half full, empty, and my image is this. I could just set this in like the start or awake routine, but if I put it in start, there's could be a script execution order with how I'm going to tell it what sprite to give itself. So I'm just going to assign it in the editor. Okay, so Cyberpunk Computing says, been making my own sprites in GIMP. It's very time consuming, especially with animations. Have you tried one of the, I don't know what GIMP's animation tools are like, but have you tried Piskel or A-Sprite? Those are my favorites. Piskel is especially good because it's totally free. So. And one NGUO, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that, says, I'd like for you now, keep it up, sure. Krita is also really good too. Michael Benny, yes, Krita is really good. Pretty robust for being something that's free. All right, so Michael Benny. So do you want me to, is your question about instancing the sword? Because like if I go to the halberd, I can make a really quick script to make it destroy itself. If you don't mind spending money. Piskel and Krita are both free, and A-Sprite, I think the older version of it is open source. Yes, A-Sprite is indeed fully focused on sprites, Alice. I like A-Sprite mainly because the animation tools in that are very, very similar to what Adobe Flash's animations used to be. Okay. So let me answer what I think Michael Benny's question was, and then if his... Oh, I see. You were trying to call an instance and then destroy when the animation is over. Right, Michael, I'm thinking really quickly here. So let's look at the player movement script here really quickly. So let's make, I'm just going to make, this is something I'm just testing something out here to see. Let's do a serialized field, private, and we'll call this like MB test. And then in here, let's instantiate MB test transform.position transform.rotation, and we'll say this is a game object. And then I'm going to put in a yield return here just to have it wait a frame and then destroy temp, because I'm pretty sure, isn't it yield return? Is it just yield? How do you make it wait a frame? I forget. How do you see sharp, bro? I thought it was yield return. Gaming is best. Yeah, I'll put this in my GitHub. C# code team wait a frame. It's not just yield. Oh, yield return 0? Doesn't seem right. That's not what I want. Let's do yield return 0. Or something super small. Let's do like 0.01f. I probably did have something similar for projectiles, Michael Benny. I want to test it out this way really, really fast. So if we go back in here, I'm gonna grab where's the player movement? There it is. Let's give it prefabs. Let's give it that sword. And then no, let's look if I don't have that yield return in there. Well, I guess in this state it would work either way because it's not. Yield return null. Thank you, Michael Benny. Good lord. Some days. I promise you, I am indeed a fully licensed educator. Yield return null. Good lord. What's funny is I couldn't find a really good answer to that through Unity Hub. Okay. So I would think that that's probably what you need to do, is put that, because what's probably happening is you're probably having a fight between destroying something that you just changed the state on in the same frame you changed the state. So like if you changed the Boolean value and then you destroyed it, it might be like a single frame issue. New wait for end of frame is another way to do it. Acid Viper, thank you. Take this out. I hope that answered your question, Michael Benny, or if it didn't, let me know. Okay. So let's make a UI. Let's call this Heart Manager. And let's open this up. I don't like this being a rigid connection to the player, but I'll make it a rigid connection for the moment. So we'll do serialized field, private health, player health, and then serialized field, private image, nope. Heart images, and then this needs Unity engine.ui. Okay. And then in the start method, we're going to go forward in I equals 0. Actually, let's do I equals heart images dot length minus 1. I is greater than or equal to 0. I minus minus. And then we'll do heart images dot. Did I not make it public? Oh, this should be heart UI. So we'll do heart images I dot setup, and we'll just give it like 1. Oh, because I did my eye differently. Okay, let's save that. I'm gonna look at chat in just a second here. Let's go back to Unity. Heart holder. This is the heart manager. Oh, compile errors. Player movement line 35. Oh. There we go. Okay, so get up there. So player health is going to be, I don't like doing this rigid connection between the UI and the player, because the UI should be able to exist on its own, and the player should be able to exist on its own. But we'll do this for now, and then our heart images, let's lock this, grab these, put them there. So it should change them all to be half hearts, if I did this correctly. Cool. So now, I'm gonna need to read from the player's health and change it. Gaming is Best asks, will the game have Easter eggs? I mean, if you put them in there, sure. I'm doing this mainly for like a framework for people to make their own things. In my experience, people are generally way more creative than I am. So if you put an Easter egg in there, there will be one in there. Naveen, if I didn't say hi earlier, hello. Okay. Did it just turn? Nope, it's still playing. Let's do, so I don't need player movement right now. I don't need general movement. I don't need state machine, player state machine. Health damage, damage on contact. I don't need damage. Only the damage over time. Alright, so what we need to do is decide what the player's current health is, and then how we want to update it. So we'll do int player health equals and the current health is going to need to be made public, which I don't like to do. And then let's make this public too, because I don't want to go over creating the scriptable objects right now. Cyberpunk Computing says, so Krita is associated with KDE. That's neat. I'm not sure what KDE is, but maybe that's just me showing my ignorance. Giving his best says I'm leaving but coming back. Sure. I'll be here for about another hour almost. So it's back here. So player health dot player health dot. Oh, did I not save my changes? Oh, is it that you can't have this be a serialized field if you make it public? If that's so, I think I already knew that, but then I'm learning it again right now. Oh, it's because I can't call it player health. Good lord. Good lord. Okay, so Marco asks, will you cover in Zelda series like buff and debuff system? Like you drink a potion, it gives you some buff, example speed boost for 5 seconds, but so they can be applied to both enemy and player. So I'm going to cover an ability system that can be similar to that, yes. However, there's an almost infinite number of use cases that people can think of for it. So for example, let's say you want it to buff, but only for a limited amount of time, but somebody might want it to buff for a limited number of attacks. Those are two different systems that I can't possibly cover everybody's variation on that. So I'll cover the framework and try to help you understand how you could create your own logical steps to make your own. Yeah? Player health current, I'm gonna call this player max equals player health dot max health. So we want to get the current and the max health. Let's make int active hearts equals player max come on now, divided by 2. So we'll take the max health and divide it by 2, and that's how many active hearts. And then in here we'll say if I is less than or equal to active hearts plus 1, because it's 0 indexed. Command X, paste, and we'll do setup 0. Alright, let's test this out here. This is very much me doing a rough draft right now, so I'd understand if you're frustrated because you're not able to follow my train of thought, because I'm not doing a very good job explaining what I'm doing here. Okay, so our player health is how much? 6. So we should only see 3 hearts turn on. Nope, and we're not going to see that because I forgot to do the setup. Let's go back here. Else heart images that's setup 3, which is the no image setup. Two, 3, 4, 5. So for some reason it saw the player's health as 5. Let's do int player max divided by 2. And let's also, in the heart UI, where we're making it null, we're gonna do my image dot color is equal to color dot clear. That means we're going to need to have the other ones be white. So let's copy this. Color dot white. All right, so there we go. Back in here. All compiler errors. Window. There is. Where did they put the console at? Am I just missing it? There it is. Art manager, line 17. Oh. Casting in C# is different than in Python. Okay. Cyberpunk Computing says KDE is a Linux desktop environment. That's awesome. Ono, it would certainly be easier to use a health bar instead of discrete hearts. It would be so easy to use a health bar versus discrete hearts. And I would agree with you about hearts being associated with lives. if it weren't for the precedent set by Zelda, in Zelda the hearts are like a discrete showing of how much health you have without actually putting a number to it. It is so much easier to just make a bar here and have that bar go down. Like, that's a bajillion times easier. In fact, to the point where I want to move on to something else right now and just go back to how I did it in the other version. 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I is, I think that's the issue. It's the less than or equal to and the +1 that's causing it to be more than I want it to be. If I can get it to just display 3 hearts, I'll be happy for now. Yep, and then it's the +1. Alright, cool. At least now I know the way I was going to do it originally is better. Oh no, no worries. A Link to the Past is the game that I've played more than any other. I used to play it every like 6 months or so. I've played it at least 50 times in my life. Okay, cool. So now that's displaying that. I'm going to say that that's good for the health for right now. Let's go back to the scene. Let's make a magic bar. So player UI. Let's create UI. Let's make a slider. Here's how much easier it is to make a health bar versus hearts. So if you make a slider, and it doesn't have to be a slider, you can make it be an image. Sliders are easier for the general amount of programming that they already have inside them. So we want to get rid of the handle. And then we're going to have to fiddle a little bit with where it fits inside the rect transform. So to do this, I always like to set the slider value to something like 0.5 so you can see where it is inside of it. Now the slider itself. So the fill needs to be there. Let's keep it where it's supposed to be, and then the fill area needs to be there and there, and I think that might be all I have to do. So 100, 0 isn't good though. I don't think it's supposed to be over there, but yeah, because now it starts there. Is it the background that's in the weird spot? Nope. Maybe if I just change the source image, it'll make more sense. Okay, and then let's make our fill nice and green. Let's make our background kind of like a dusky red. So our fill area should be all the way back there, and our fill, there we go. These sliders in Unity are always so fiddly. There we go. Hello, gaming is best. Welcome back. So I'm going to call this my magic bar. And the magic bar, holy cow, is this easier. Let's do our C# script and we'll call this magic UI. I don't like generally making these rigid connections that I'm doing right now, but since I haven't gone over scriptable objects in this little teeny tiny streaming series, I'm going to make a rigid connection between this and the player's magic. So that means I'm going to have to make the magic pool public as well. And then public. And then in the magic UI, we're going to need to make a reference to the slider. So Marco, if you wanted to make a buff system that works on more than the player, you need to make sure that you're using kind of generic components. So like, let's say you want your player's max health to be higher for, I don't know, a minute or whatever, then you need to have a similar health system on the enemy, or at least a health system that inherits from the same kind of health system as the player, so that you can then use dependency inversion, which is one of those solid design principles. So you can have, like, if you have like a basic health system and then player health inherits from that and enemy health inherits from that, you can just use health and it should apply to the enemy health, if that makes sense. So let's do last field, private slider, magic slider, and let's do serialized field. Let's do private magic pool player magic, and then all we have to do, and let's actually, so let's say our magic slider dot max value is equal to player magic dot max magic, and magic slider dot value is equal to player magic dot current magic. That's all you have to do, and it works just fine. So if you go back in here, oops. Oh, it's inaccessible due to its protection level. I didn't save my changes to it. Okay, all we have to do is go back in here. And now if I didn't assign anything. Good lord. So magic bar gets magic UI. Come on now. There we go. And it needs to know what the slider is, and it needs to know what the magic pool is. Now it'll work. So now if I just go to my magic pool here and just change the current magic, you can see it automatically reflects. Okay, so Michael Benny asks, in the Unity course, will you start with rigid connections and refactor later, or make it more complex with no rigid connections and no refactoring? Ideally, I would like to have no refactoring. So like at this point, I'd set up the player health script and player magic script, player health UI, player magic UI. Then, before I make any connections between them, I would do like a little break off into how I'd like to connect them less rigidly using scriptable objects, and then tie that back to this, if that makes any sense. So I'd have like a probably 3 video separation where I talk about float values and I don't think I'm going to call them signals anymore. I'll call them something else, but maybe like scriptable signals or something. And then come back and talk about how I can use that to connect stuff together. That way the player can survive without the UI and the UI can survive without the player. Otherwise, one can't survive without the other. Okay. That UI is still pretty big in our screen, but that's okay. So let's talk about abilities now. So I'm going to go to my project settings really quickly. Let's look at input. So I've got weapon attack. Let's make another axis. And I'm going to call this ability. And this is going to be, let's do shift. Oh no, I think you have to do like left shift. Let's do just M. And then let's do joystick button 1, which is B. Okay, this is all fine. Now let's go to our movement controller. Let's open that up. And let's create, actually before we do this, let's create the framework for the abilities. So in source, generic, create C# script. We're going to call this generic ability. And let's open this up. TechWows asks, what application do you use to play music? Currently I'm using Pretzel. I just have it on like a, I think this is the Upbeat station. It's copyright free, so I can keep this on YouTube without having the audio muted. Alright, so generic ability is going to be a scriptable object. So instead of inheriting from mono behavior, we're going to inherit from scriptable object. And that means we need to make a create asset menu property. Create asset menu. Let's do menu name is equal to abilities slash new ability. And file name equals new ability. And then in here, we'll have a public void, and we'll call this act, but we're going to be overloading this a few different ways. So let's do, it takes a rigid body 2D, we'll just call it rigid body. And let's make another version of act that takes a position, or a direction and a position. So we'll do vector 2 position and float. Let's change this from position to direction so that we're actually calling it what it should be. Float magnitude. Okay, so the reason I'm doing these different ones is your abilities might have different, oh, and these should be virtual as well. Okay, so they can be overridden by the child classes. So the first ability, the easiest one to do is like a dash ability, and we'll use a rigid body 2D for that, but you might want to have an ability that throws a fireball, in which case you're going to need to have a direction and a speed for that fireball. So we got this generic ability. I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to specifically C# script. I'm going to call this dash, and this is, it looked like it opened it, but it didn't. That's weird. This is going to inherit from generic ability, and it's going to have and this is going to be the one that takes the rigid body. I'll call it the actor. Alright, cool. Now, let's go to player movement, and let's make a serialized field, private, generic ability, current ability. Input get that button down. Let's say if get button down ability and state.myState is not equal to general state dot attacking. Then we're going to start coroutine. We'll call this ability co, and then we'll make a quick little coroutine for that. Call this ability co, and this is going to be yield return new wait for seconds. I'm going to hard code this value in, and then we'll say let's change the state. What did I call the change state method? It's just state.change state. And then okay, I'll look at chat in just a second here. Let's not hard code this. Let's instead go to our generic ability and let's make a multiplayer float ability duration, and let's instead have this weight the ability's duration. That's better. And then in the dash ability, we want to take the rigid body and we want to move it forward, and I'm going to use do tween for that. So I'm going to go to the asset store, and this is actually going to need to have not just a rigid body but also a direction. So let's go to do tween. Okay, and while I'm downloading this, I'm going to check chat. So we're going to import Michael Benny, good point. I forgot that that doesn't inherit. I think you were here on the stream last time when I found out that the properties don't inherit, and I completely forgot they don't because it just seems like they should. So what Michael Benny just pointed out is all of this menu name stuff here. I forgot that this won't inherit to the child class. So let's cut that from here. And in the dash ability, we're gonna put it here instead. Thanks for pointing that out, Michael Benny. And then we'll call this new dash and new dash. And then so this is going to have a dash force. Thanks for pointing that out, Michael Benny. And this is going to need to have dg.tweening, which set up do tween. Apply. Cool. So it's, I think it's dg.tweening for do tween. And let's do actor.doMove. We want to do direction.normalized times dash force, and then the duration is going to be the ability duration. Alright, so let's save all of these. Let's go back to Unity here. Let's make a new folder for our scriptable objects. And then inside here, let's make a folder for player abilities. And then in here, let's make a Wait, did I not save that correctly? It's supposed to be abilities new dash. Why do I have a little error there? Create asset menu. Why is there that? Oh, duh, that's why. Save all of these. Back into Unity. This is going to need to be deleted. New dash. So let's do our dash force as 10. Ability duration 0.3. In our movement, I'm going to put this as our current ability, but we can change this out in the future. And then we need to tell it more information than we're currently telling it. So player movement. We want to do current ability dot act. We want to send it our rigid body. What did I call that? Player movement. It's in the movement parent script, which is here. Let's make this public so that we can get it in the child. I'll look at chat in just a second. And then we'll do vector 2. Did I call it? In the movement script, what did I call it? Player movement then. Temp move. So I want to do, let's actually just send temp move. Cool. So let's save that and let's find out what I broke. I'm not super keen about this. Movement.myRigidBody. I thought I saved my change. I did not save my change. Okay. And whoa! That was a bit insane. 10 is definitely too much. Let's cut it down by half. And also he was going in a weird direction. Okay. It's kind of working here. Got some issues. So if we're not attacking and state.myState is not equal to general state.ability. So that makes sure that we can't use the ability if we're already using the ability. That's weird. So I'll look at chat in just a moment here. I know that there's probably some people who are shouting at me in there. I just want to check something out first. Actor.doMove direction.normalize times dash force. What did I do wrong? Debug.log direction. Alright, so if we play here in Unity, so It thinks the direction is 0, 0. Oh, no, it knew what it was that time. So left and right, it's fine. Straight up and down, it's fine. So long as I've been moving up and down. But if I, like, say, was moving up and then tried to go, it had like a little bit of a memory to it. That's weird. Alright, let's look at chat really quickly here. Okay. Core gave me a comment about my semicolon there. Thank you very much for doing that, even though I wasn't watching chat like a noob. Alright, so let's get rid of this debug.log. I wonder if so no, it's only updating the animation and moving if we're in walking. Move equals vector 2.0. I wonder if I can just grab, this is going to be kind of weird, but I wonder if I can just grab the animator's move values. Anim dot Alright, so let's put that back to how it was. Temp move gets set in update animation and move, which is taking information from the joystick or the keyboard. And so the problem, I think, is from here, where if we're not in idle or walking, we're going here. So I want to say else if state.myState, I want to just check really quickly, is not equal to general state.ability to make sure that that's not what's doing it. I also want to bring this dash ability down a bit. Let's do like 2. Oh. So it's going like... That's weird. It wasn't working at first. Oh gosh. I'm doing something super wrong here. MIDI Diab, I'm working on a little bit of the ability system that I hope to add to the actual Zelda tutorial, the formalized one, not the sloppy live streaming one, soon, hopefully by the end of the week. But I'm using do tween to move the player forward, but I'm having some issues with that. So let's change this back to just else. And then instead of using I think in my animator, I think I made the animator public or private like I should have. So let's go here, animator controller. Yeah, I made it private. So let's do public float get anim float. Somebody pointed out in the comments to the last live stream too that I could have consolidated these two into by just overriding the like having the get anim value and then have an override for it, which is totally right. Okay, so let's do string float name, float value, and then we'll return anim dot get float name, float value. Oh, because I'm not setting it, I just need the name. And I don't need the float value up here either. I'm so used to doing it as setting it rather than getting it. Alright, so there we go. Now in player movement, instead of using temp move, let's use a vector2 based on the animator's values. Vector2. Let's do anim.get anim float move x anim.get anim float. There has to be an easier way to do this. This must just be me being a little bit sloppy. There we go. Alright. If this doesn't work, I'm gonna move on to something else. Oh, I have to call it a new vector2. Again, C# is not Python. It's still acting weird. I'll have to look at how I did this in another one. For now, I'm just going to take this off. So I'm just going to comment that out. I'll come back to it and I'll actually fix it. By design, this series is meant to be a little bit rough, so apologies to anybody out there who's upset for me not doing things more professionally. Mididiab asks, Unity adds in time show gifts times. So I think you're asking how you would do like a gift timer? Or like Candy Crush's time-based live system. So Unity has a time.elapsed function. What I would do is I would store a value for when the last life was lost and store that in memory somewhere, either using a scriptable object or saving it to a serialized value outside of the game, and then find the elapsed time between the current system time and that time, and 20 minutes minus that time is what the timer's value would be, unless 20 minutes has gone by, in which case you would increase the number of lives, if that makes sense. I don't know exactly what code would go into it, because I don't personally like doing systems like that, but that's the general overview of how you would do it. Okay. So we've set up some health systems, we set up some damage systems. Let's do, I don't want to do coins, because I'd rather, like, I'd have to cover scriptable objects for that. Maybe it's time to start looking at the environment. So let's take a look at tiled. So tiled is a free map editor that you can get from, I think it's like mapeditor.org or something like that. Or you can get it on itch.io by just searching for tiled. So let's make a new room. New map. Let's make this let's make this oblong. So we'll do like 50 by 25. And I'm going to save this into a new folder. And let's call this Udemy Maps, and I'm going to call this, put in some trees. I sure will. Oh, okay. Well, I guess I have to put this, I'll put it on my desktop. We'll call this Udemy Maps, and I'll call this room 1. I need to make a new tile set too. Let's get rid of that sewers one. So file, new tile set. I'm gonna call this Udemy test based on tile set image, and our source is gonna be from assets, superpowers, ninja adventure, background elements, tile set. And we're going to save it into the same folder we saved the map. Alright, cool. So here's our tile set. Now in our room, we have this tile set active. Let's do like a winter theme here. So in our tile set, let's create a new, I think it's called they call it like a terrain. Terrains. So let's make a terrain out of the ice stuff. Can I know I've done this before. Oh, new terrain. Cool. So there's that, and then let's do the outside. Okay. Now if I jump back over and save this, jump back over here, I want to use a terrain, new terrain. So I should be able to paint with this. And let's make something that's kind of organic looking here. And then now I can take my tile set and let's use the fill tool. Let's fill it with okay. That's not so bad. That looks pretty good. This is one of the reasons I really like tiled, is that terrain system is just so much easier than you'd think it would be. Alright, so now let's add some trees. So I'm going to call this layer ground. So layer properties, ground. And we'll add another, which I'm going to call stumps. And then I'll put the treetops on a separate layer. So I want stumps above the ground. And let's see, we got a lot of different trees we can use here. Let's go with these kind of, oop, nope, I want just the regular stamp brush. So let's make like a little forest over here. So we'll go, oop. Oh, I guess it needs to be up there to appear on top. Okay, so actually, I think I want to erase that. And instead I want to just grab these two because I want it to look like there's a lot of trees behind it. I haven't looked at chat in a little bit, so I'll look at that in just a second here, guys. If anybody's screaming for my attention. Alright, so now let's do a side there. and a side over here. Let's grab these middle ones. Kind of paste these in. So I guess this isn't stumps like I wanted it to be. Oh wait, nope. Grr. This needs to be, there we go, offset like that. So there you go, Anno. Here's some trees. Yeah, it needs to be like that. And then up here. I'm sure there's a faster way to do this, but I actually find this kind of soothing. This is kind of nice. And then mirror. Mirror, mirror, mirror. Okay, here we go. So now let's zoom in here. And let's add some details to these. Oops, so this should be like that. And then that up there should be I messed up that last row, it looks like. So if you were shouting at me to tell me that I was messing it up, apologies. So let's do this. It's very hot in the United States right now. I don't know where anybody is, but it's kind of nice looking at a nice little winter scene like this for me. This goes there. And then this goes there. And there. And there. And there. Wait, I think I got that one wrong. There we go. Okay. We got a nice little forest there. Let's take a look at chat. I'm going to put stumps on a collision layer, yes. Okay, so Cyberpunk Computing says, is it ill-advised to create saves using strings directly stored in a file? I never took the time to learn the more advanced features of Unity. It's ill-advised if your players are going to have access to the file system, because they can mess with stuff and either break the game or cheat. You can change that by just adding a really quick layer of encryption, and Unity has an encryption method. But if your player doesn't have access to where your information is stored, then it's not a big deal. Let's make... So stumps is going to be a collision layer, so I'm just going to rename this to collision. Let's make a little plateau right there. So I'm gonna grab this. Actually, let's do this piecemeal. So let's do this. And then it would probably look better if it was only one wide, wouldn't it? And then let's do this across the back. So that's going to be a collision object. I actually add collision to this. Let's do Let's do a little house over here. Okay, and then add some decorations around it. So these are all going to be on the collision layer when I move this into Unity. Let's not do there. No, I kind of like it like that. So we've got like a little house there. We've got a little area up here. Let's add some interest to this area that's up here. Maybe that leads to like a treasure chest or something. Maybe the treasure chest is on the other side of some rocks here. Like that. And then, let's see here. Let's make some more trees. Let's go. You totally can. So Michael Benny asks, is it possible to add friction to here? It 100% is. So there's a few different ways that you can do that in Unity specifically. If we were to, let's just create an empty object. And we're going to call this physics test. Let's look at some of the physics 2D components. So there's a couple different physics 2D components in here that you can use for that. It's not how I would do it, but there's the surface effector, which allows you to add force to the speed. This is usually used to, so like you need a collider with it. So let's add a box collider, and then let's give this a sprite too. And there we go. Let's get rid of our little damage test here, or at least turn it off. So this effector, yeah, let's leave it with everything. So currently we've got our speed is, go on now. Oh, used by effector. I have to. Oh, because I added an actual box collider, not a box collider 2D. And then this needs to be used by effector. That's why it disappeared when I hit play. Okay. So let's take a look at what happened there. So there's my player. They went way the heck up there. Let's do a little bit of work with, it's been a while since I've done anything with this. So let's use friction but not bounce. Contact force. The speed along the surface. If the speed is negative, then the rigid body will move in the opposite direction than if it were positive speed. Acceleration or deceleration will be automatically applied. So let's do negative 0.5 for scale. Alright, so I want to be able to actually see that thing, so I'm just going to pull it on here. I'm going to make the physics test a child of it, and then reset its transform to be 0. Okay. Okay. Object too large or too far away from the origin. So it's bouncing the player somewhere super weird. I don't know. There's a way that you can use a surface effector. Let's remove that component though. And let's look at another physics 2D component. So there's the area effector. Constant force. Okay, so this applies a constant force like a wind zone. And then let's do physics 2D again. Platform effectors for one-way platforms. But yeah, so there's ways that you can do it like that. But what I would rather do is just have like a slow zone function on it, and then when the player enters, you would multiply their speed value by that slow zone, and when they exit, you'd return it back to normal. Chengi says hi. Hello, Chengi. I'm actually going to save everything and then call it a morning. I'm going to need to make some videos this afternoon, I think. So, thank you everybody who came to the stream. Appreciate it. I had fun. Let me save all my tiled files here too. Okay. So, next Tuesday we'll be looking at this again. So, thank you everybody who showed up. Y'all are awesome. I appreciate you. Check out my Discord if you want to. Link to the asset packs is in the description of the stream. And yeah, I hope everybody has themselves a great day.